Well, it's 4:30. We have 5 council members online. And let's see. I need to make the following statement. Pursuant to Utah Code, West Valley City has determined that this meeting will be held electronically without an anchor location, given the ongoing novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. West Valley City has determined that the pandemic presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at an anchor location. This meeting will be held electronically. Members of the press and public are invited to view this meeting live on YouTube. And you can check on our website for that, but it's youtube.com/user/WVCTV. With that, we'll call our meeting to order. We note that we have 5 council members in attendance. Councilman Jake Fitissimano is excused and will not be attending our meetings tonight. And I believe that Tom Hune will join us shortly. With that, then, we have our minutes of October 20th. And if they're all in order, we need a motion.
I move for approval of the minutes.
Second?
Second.
Hearing no further comments, without objection, the minutes will be approved. Hearing no objection, the minutes are approved unanimously. Let's see, reviewing our agenda for later tonight. There have been no changes to our agenda. Any comments or questions? Okay, then we'll go next to our resolution 20-170 to approve the execution of an interlocal agreement between our city and Salt Lake County. And looks like is Chief Jacobs going to talk about this?
Yes, sir.
You're on and we hear you, so go ahead.
Okay, good evening, council. Good evening, mayor. This is an agreement with Salt Lake County through emergency management under our pandemic status to provide security and traffic control at testing sites here in West Valley City. You remember a few months back, I came to you with a request for overtime for park patrol. They have since discontinued because I'm guessing because it's colder weather and not as many people in the parks. This has since come out from the emergency management team as a request for police services at these testing sites.
That completes your introduction. Council members, any comments, questions?
So how long is this agreement for?
until they discontinue the funding.
Okay. So we spoke yesterday about overtime shifts for the police. Is this going to go through the company we discussed yesterday?
No, there's a carve out for government entities and overtime provided through government entities so that there's not that additional fee for taxpayers.
Okay. And then the money will we pay the officer the overtime hours and be reimbursed, or will the county pay that?
We pay the officers and then invoice the county for the funding.
So in the past, we've had, so police department pays for the overtime, but then the reimbursement money has just gone in the general fund. Have we corrected that so it goes into the police budget where the wages came out of?
That is the intention. We just recently this week billed the county for the park patrols. So we're waiting for that check to arrive, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Mr. Welch at this time, but I believe that check will be deposited into the police overtime budget since that's where it was paid out of.
Okay, thank you.
Now, that's Wayne, this will be a question for you. Is that by practice? Because typically, many of our line items, although we allocate them out budget-wise, there is flexibility across most of our budget.
Yes, that's correct, Mayor. And that would be by practice because, as you know, almost all police budgeting, not all of it, but almost all of it is general fund anyway. So
Yeah.
reimburse or putting the money back into overtime would be by practice, not by requirement or accounting function.
Yeah, we don't have any requirements there. So although typically that seems to be a good practice, I know that in times of need or concern, funds are moved around with most items. I think there's an exception for salaries and benefits that stayed in that general category, but it's pretty broad. So, okay. Any other questions? Okay, Chief, thank you very much. You did a good job. Next, we'll go to Resolution 20-171 to approve an interlocal cooperation agreement between our city and Salt Lake County to transfer the control of Redwood Trailhead Park and Hillsdale Park. And will someone from Parks and Recreation be doing this? Looks like Nancy Day. And you look like you're having fun on the beach, but that's probably not real. Okay, you're muted, so we can't hear you, Nancy.
I'm sorry about that.
There you
No,
go.
it's not real right now, Mayor. So wish it were, but good evening, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be here. What this resolution is an interlocal agreement with Salt Lake County for the transfer of control for the two parks, the county parks that West Valley City is acquiring. So this is the Redwood Trailhead Park, the Jordan River, and then also Hillsdale Park. What this interlocal agreement allows us to do is to take control. As you know, there's been some troubling, illicit, different types of behavior that have happened at that park. This gives us the opportunity to maintain it in a safe manner and to take control of what some of those issues have been over the years and have gotten worse. And so that's what this does. As it mentions in there, Salt Lake County is in the process right now verifying the acreage and boundaries. For example, the Trailhead Park, there's a number of parcels that over the years, they just haven't pulled it all together for the park. And we want to be sure that when we get the deed and contract and finalize that process, that in fact, we're getting all of those parcels as part of that park. So that will take a little bit of time, but we really wanted to be able to take control of it sooner so that we could make it a more desirable atmosphere and take care of the things we needed to there.
Hey, Nancy, that transfer is not just control, but it is actual ownership.
It is for, yes, for maintenance and to take care of the park, but we don't have the deed or the contract yet until they're done in their legal
Yes.
department. Yes,
But
that's correct.
ultimately, we will own the property, and we could cut down a tree, or we could pull up some grass and put in a slide, or, whatever we want to do
Absolutely, Mayor, absolutely.
without going through the county. Okay.
Yes.
Council members, questions, comments?
So,
So
and a comment whenever there's time.
go ahead.
Well, I've heard I identified one, Karen Lang. The other one sounded like someone clearing their throat, so. But I'm not sure who it was. So,
Probably. So anyway, my question is, are we going to keep the attention to the tennis court? I have residents in that area that were very upset when they put the grow boxes on the tennis court. And then were very pleased when they moved those to the north side and then repaved and fixed up the tennis court. And it's used by the neighborhood from what they all tell me. So are we going to make sure that that stays functional?
Yes, absolutely. The little community garden that you mentioned to the north, there is a partnership with an agency to maintain that. And so we'll need to do that, at least for the interim, and that is being used. But the other tennis court, absolutely. And we will be painting pickleball court lines on that as well. So it will be multi-use.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
then who else was it?
It's me, Mayor. My question is, with taking over this park, do we get any funding from the county, or how's that going to work? Do we just absorb the expenses?
Yes, they felt like the acquisition of acreage and the asset of that was their payment. We can look at getting funding from ZAP tax dollars in the future for different things, but that's down the road. So there will be a cost affiliated with the maintenance and a little bit of equipment that our staff will need to maintain those parks.
And it's your understanding that we have the wherewithal to absorb that then?
Mr. Pyle and I have been in conversation about a little bit of the extra funding that we will need to be able to maintain those in an efficient manner.
Just to add to Nancy's comments, two points. One, we did ask the county for operational funding along with the acquisition of it, and they just refused. They said, no, we don't have the funding to do that. If you want to take the property on, then you're going to have to bear the operational expense. To the second question, again, just adding to what Nancy said, we both believe we will need additional operational funding. We won't bring that up or ask for it until the next budget year. And even if the council were so inclined to not grant that, obviously, as always, we would figure out a way to make it stretch. But we don't think, or we won't be recommending that that's the best course. We would be recommending adding additional service.
Well, I'm not surprised that the county is not willing to provide us some sort of stipend. Certainly, we want the park, so it'll be ours. We'll take care of it. It'll be a nice place. It goes away from the county. They'd have one less headache to worry about or property to maintain. But I think the overall goal we need to keep in mind is that we want our parks to be nice. And if we take over a park from the county, the expectation would be that it'll be better than when the county was operating it. And so, I expect that will cost money. And pleased to hear that we can absorb that as it is now, and then we'll have to look at that in the future budget. That's all the questions that I have.
Is there anyone else?
So I have one more question, speaking to personnel. So if there's been problems at the park, have we had a large police presence there, and will we continue have to do that? Or what are we going to change so that it's not a problem park anymore?
So we have had to have a large personnel presence there. We've had regular patrols by the community-oriented policing group. I myself have spent a lot of time over there, frankly. We've already greatly reduced the need for that and the traffic in and around that. And we accomplished that right off the bat in a couple of manners. First, we have removed the picnic tables and shut down the restroom, and we're planning on demolishing the restroom, which is aged event, and treat that amenity more along the lines of one of our neighborhood parks where they don't have restrooms. The other thing we've done in the short term is to restrict the use of that park to walking and exercising, biking through, walking your dog, that sort of thing. Sort of like we did for the Promenade Park on a temporary basis. That's immediately shown results in reducing unwanted traffic there.
So do we have any football programs practicing there?
No, and there's no space to do that either. There's no open field there. It's trees and lawn and trail, basically.
Okay. I just thought there was a big open area, so I may not have the memory right. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilman Lang, there is at Hillsdale Park, but it's not regulation size. So if teams are going there, they're just going there to practice a little bit here or there, but it's nothing that's scheduled or organized.
Okay, thank you.
Hearing no further comments. Nancy, thank you. And we'll move on now to our next item, new business, to consider application SMI-1-2020 filed by Yanni Hinojo, requesting final plat approval for the Hunter Creek subdivision at 3658 South Hawkeye Street. And there may be a council member or two who are very interested in this. So, Mr. Lehman, looks like you're ready to talk about this.
Thank you, Mayor. Steve Lehman with the Community and Economic Development Department. As the mayor mentioned, this is an interesting little subdivision, provides a key connector piece, I should say, to Hawkeye Street. This has existed in this configuration for many, many years prior to my starting with the city 24 years ago. The property is located at 3658 South Hawkeye Street, as you can see from the aerial photograph, just west of Bangerter Highway and west of the ball field at Granger High School. The next slide is just a little bit of a zoomed in version. The property on the west side of Hawkeye Street is vacant. Property on the east side has an existing single-family home. Just a really brief history here. The individual who owned this property back in the 1990s sold the home on the east side of the property. This was not subdivided. When she sold the home on the east side of Hawkeye Street, she made the error of creating a new boundary through the middle of Hawkeye Street. So when that person bought the home, they owned out to the center line of what would be the extension of Hawkeye. She later came back in and wanted to build a home on the vacant piece of property. We explained to her that subdivision would be necessary and the connection of those two streets would be needed. She approached the gentleman who bought the home from her, and he was unwilling to dedicate that portion of right-of-way. It went to court, and the judge ruled in favor of the homeowner who bought the land, and so it sat now for 24 years. The gentleman who owned the home on the east side passed away, and the city learned about that and approached the new owner of the property, and we actually purchased the eastern half of Hawkeye Street. So you'll see there's a couple of lines in the middle of the roadway there. We own the east portion of the right-of-way. Mr. Anoho has since purchased the property and is going through the subdivision process to create a legal two-lot subdivision with dedication and improvements to Hawkeye Street. So from the city's perspective, we're pleased that this is coming to us because the connection needed between the two subdivisions on the north and the south is critical. The next slide, if I can get Eric to go to the next slide. We included in the presentation to simply show you a couple of things. The property is highlighted in yellow. The north property, which is part of the Western Acres Phase 2 subdivision, has approximately 83 lots with a single point of access on 4000 and 4000 West. The fire code allows up to 30, so there's almost triple number of homes on a single point of access. The reason that we showed the two red lined streets is during the Planning Commission's review of this application, a resident or two had a comment about opening this roadway would then involve more traffic generated through the subdivisions. And as you can see from this illustration, each of these subdivisions, both the Western Acres to the north and the Bridal Veil at Wallace Farms to the south, have relatively direct accesses out to 40th West. So there really isn't a need for me to cross going north or south if I needed to get out to 40th West. We're simply showing that as a means to say we don't believe that that will be a problem in the future. But from a safety standpoint, which is what we're concerned about, opening this connection up is critical. And the last slide that we have for you is the subdivision itself. So the subdivision will consist of 2 lots on 0.61 acres. The eastern lot obviously has the home. The western piece will be platted for a new single-family home in the future. The developer will dedicate his portion of right-of-way. The city engineering division is actually going to be designing this section of road, and Mr. Enojo will reimburse the city for his portion of those improvements. So to summarize, the subdivision is a 2-lot subdivision. We will get dedication along Hawkeye Street, and a new single-family home will be built on the western lot. And that is our report.
Thank you, council members.
Just like to state that I am glad to see this happening. I have, as you know, brought this up before, and appreciate the good work of staff to bring this to a conclusion. I actually did witness a fire there that blocked off that whole neighborhood as there were fire engines in the street. No one could get in, no one could get out for quite a while because that was the only point of access. And certainly it never would have been built this way if it was under city control at the time. So I'm just happy to see it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hearing,
I have
go
one.
ahead.
So this makes Hawkeye a very long, straight road. Are we going to put any traffic calming around it? I mean, along it, or how are we going to handle racing or anything else that might be worrisome for that neighborhood with such a long street?
That's a good question. We haven't discussed traffic calming at this point. That's certainly something that I can raise with the Public Works Department. If traffic calming were to be installed, this would probably be the logical pinch point and could be designed into the road system. I'll talk with Dan Johnson and Eric Brondum about that question, and we'll follow up with you.
Thank you.
Hearing no further comments. Thank you very much, Mr. Lehman. We'll go now to the storm drain easements. We're going to Resolution 20-172, the abandonment and release of 2 storm drain easements.
Thank you, Mayor. This application, I believe we have one illustration. If I could get Eric to bring that up. This is a staff-initiated request to release storm drain easement on the Newton Farm Phase 3 subdivision. In 2016, 2 storm drain easements were created to facilitate development of the Clearstone Estates subdivision, which is just to the west of where Newton Farm Phase 3 exists. Now we have a map that shows this area. So the area that is the large field is Newton Farm Phase 3. Property to the west or to the left on the screen with the homes and green lawn is the Clearstone Estates subdivision. Prior to us even knowing anything about Newton Farm, the Clearstone Estates subdivisions were underway, under development. As part of their approval from the city, we needed somewhere to take storm water. And so this easement that's highlighted in yellow was established by Mr. Eric Bishop, and then subsequently went to Hallmark Homes for the construction of the subdivision. At about that same time, Mr. Ken Milne approached the city about developing the Newton property, and discussions took place between him and Hallmark Homes to run the stormwater through the city street system as opposed to this storm drain easement. Of course, we all appreciated that effort, and stormwater now runs through Newton Drive out to 6400 West. Therefore, the storm drain that is highlighted in yellow on this illustration is no longer needed. And as you know, we recently recorded Newton Farm Phase 3, so that will help clear up any encumbrance on those lots as they start construction. That is our report.
Mr. Lehman, one of the issues in this area was that these homes were supposed to be at a category where they absorbed the stormwater within each property, or the majority of it. That was one of the key elements of that subdivision, is when we went out there for the kind of little home show they had. Is that still the case, or is this a totally different concept now?
Well, it's a different concept in that the stormwater that this easement was to handle is stormwater that's generated from the street. You are correct in the assumption that all of the lots in Newton Farms have on-site retention. And so each lot, as it is constructed, the developer installs a retention system in the backyard. Typically, it's an underground pipe that accommodates that storm water. So each lot that generates storm water is held on property. The easement that we're talking about today was storm water that's generated from the street system.
And so they're still doing that for those homes in this Phase 3 that will go in as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Hearing no further comments?
Just one question, Mayor.
Sure.
I was trying to get unmuted. As I look at the picture of Phase 3, it looks like there's a either an irrigation ditch or a drainage ditch running right through the south end of it. Will that be alleviated when they build the homes there?
Yes, the developer has coordinated all of the irrigation issues with the water master in the area and any downstream water users in all of Newton Farms.
Okay.
All right. Then we now go to communications. We have our Public Works Building ribbon cutting video. There were 3 of us in attendance there, and they've provided a summary of the tours and so forth there. So is that ready to go? Like it.
Hello, my name is Russ Willardson. I'm the Public Works Director for West Valley City. I'd like to welcome you to our tour of our new operations facility today. West Valley City first acquired property here about 35 years ago. And it was initially an old furniture warehouse of cinder block with a paved parking lot in front, and the rest of the property was just dirt. Over the many years, we've worked hard to improve this property, mostly with our own forces and doing some remodeling of the building and improving the yard. But today we're pleased and excited to show you the first facility that is completely designed for the specific use of the employees who work here. And we're really excited about that. So I'm going to introduce Jake Arslanian, who's our project manager, and he will give a brief description of this actual construction project. And each of the division heads in Public Works will be here to explain their area and show you what has been built to meet their needs here at this new facility. Most of our divisions are housed here at the operations site. We have 2 divisions, facilities and engineering, that are at City Hall. Everyone else, from fleet to utility billing to our operations, street maintenance, storm drain maintenance, street lighting, and who am I forgetting? Transportation divisions are all housed here at this facility. So we're really excited, pleased to move into this new facility that we anticipate will meet our needs for many years. Thanks.
Thanks, Russ, for that great introduction. Hello all, I am Hagop Jake Arslanian, Director of Facilities and Construction Management for West Valley City, a division of the Public Works Department. It's been my privilege to manage so many construction projects for the city the last few years. However, this project has been very dear and near to my heart for obvious reasons. I would like to thank Russ Willardson for his vision and his insight about transforming this 10.5 acres into a beautiful state-of-the-art Public Works Department, which in my mind is the best of state in West Valley City. This project and the process started many, many years ago. However, the latest segment of building and renovating a Public Works operational facility, it started 2 years ago. We've hired an architect to have a master plan. With that master plan in hand, we were able to start the construction project. However, the complexity of the project and so many moving components and vacating existing buildings to demolish and rebuild, it had to be in 2 phases. Phase 1 was to demolish and retrofit the existing 5,000 square feet in the fleet operations facility, which is behind me, and simultaneously adding the additional 5,000 square feet that would be adding the Public Works operations facility. While we're constructing and remodeling the interior of this facility, we simultaneously have added a fuel station. With some mandates from the state and the time frame that they have given us to cover all of our sweeping bins, our wash bays, and our slurry operations, we had to simultaneously, while we're doing everything else in phase 1, relocate and construct with enclosed 3-sided enclosure for all of our sweeping bins, our wash bays, and our slurry operation, which now resides on the south side of the building next to the commercial properties, away from the residential. Simultaneously, building the Parks Department new operations building at 6750 West. So as you could see, there was too many moving parts, too many domino effects. So we had to collaborate with the contractor, with the subcontractor, with our divisions that are operating from this facility while we're doing all this construction. After the completion of phase 1, we had to relocate all of our equipment of Public Works operation to some storage bins, to demolish the old existing 17,000 square foot facility that was repurposed so many times, and it was time for it to be demolished, and started the construction of phase 2, which is approximately 27,000 square feet operations facility that will house all of our heavy equipment, all of our construction equipment, and create an atmosphere of safe environment for our employees to work in. So this facility will be on the same 3.5 acres and will be the state-of-the-art facility when it comes to storage facility. It would be very efficient, very safe for employees to operate from, environmentally friendly, and very easy to maintain and operate. I would like to introduce you to some of our division heads that reside in this facility and have them each individually walk you through the construction project and the results that we have received. We are in the lobby of the utility billing and sanitation services. This lobby also services our fleet management and also our public works operations. I would like to introduce you now one by one to our division heads that will walk you through this process and electronically show you our beautiful building. I would first like to introduce you to Eric Madsen, our fleet manager, that will talk a little bit about the retrofits and the designs that we did to enhance our fleet operation. Then Paul Love, who is our utility billing / sanitation division manager. Then Eric Brondem and Zeke Thompson, who are the public works operations manager. And after they conclude with their electronic walkthroughs, I will come back and give you some closing remarks. Until then, I'll see you.
This is where all of our city customers will come in for their oil changes. We maintain everything from weed eaters to bulldozers. Come around here is our new lobby waiting area. Here we're into the city's fleet maintenance building. We've been in this building for 18 years and it's served us well. Over on this side, you'll see our future home of our install shop for installing police equipment, lights, sirens, everything from all the bells and whistles. We do everything in-house and save a lot of money.
Thanks, Eric. My name's Paul Love. I work for utility billing and sanitation. I'm the supervisor here. This is our new offices, and we have a fantastic new foyer for the customers to come into. It's got a completely self-contained, keeps us separated from our customers, has a bathroom for them so that they don't have to go back into the places where the normal employees would do their business. This is where our clerks are. We have 5 clerks, 2 of which primarily take payments. We have 3 sanitation technicians, one that works primarily with the dumpster program and dealing with field issues, and 2 that do maintain the services for taking care of the cans. We also do collections here. We have a really nice conference room now where we can do training and handle issues that come up with our customers. Makes us much more efficient and allows us to take care of the affairs of utility billing in a much more cost-effective way. Our space is far better than it used to be. Now we're together and we have room to do our jobs and interact with each other and even have impromptu middle meetings in the spaces that are there that we really didn't have before. We also have a space that's just out here a little bit where we'll be keeping our cans, and our technicians will work out of that for distributing cans and repairing them.
Thanks, Paul. My name is Eric Brondem. I'm the operations engineer, and this is our new operations facility. It's quite a bit bigger than our old place. We actually have a nice locker room with lockers that fit all of our individual needs. We actually have showers now. All right, in here we have space for our crew leads. Here's where they can wrap up any paperwork for the day and just have their own personal space. The other major improvement is our lunchroom. Here we have room that fits all of our employees. It can be divided in half for a training room, and it's large enough for most, if not all, of the department to have trainings and luncheons. Then upstairs we have our supervisors and our transportation division. Over here is where we house our transportation division, where we manage all our signs and painting and all the things that they do. At the other end of the hallway we have all our supervisors. And this is where we manage everything. We have our schedule on the TV for every day. This is where we manage snow operations during the winter and all our day-to-day activities. That's pretty much it.
Thanks, Eric. This is the new elevator, makes our second floor viable for occupancy. Offices are great. Now we'll go outside and check out all the new stuff outside. So this is the new operations storage building. We store everything in here from concrete operations, asphalt, traffic control, stormwater. All of our vehicles for daily operations are now we're able to store them inside or under the canopy. That'll help a lot, especially during snow removal season. We'll be able to respond a lot faster. We'll have to wait to clean snow off of vehicles and ice. We also are able to store our chemicals indoors, in compliance with different stormwater regulations. It's a great upgrade from how we were operating out of this facility. Okay, so now we're inside. This is actually where we store the majority of our stormwater vehicles, our sweepers, our Vactor, stuff like that, keep them out of the weather so they don't freeze. The other side where you can see these roll-up bays, that's where our different areas are that will house asphalt, concrete, street lighting, garbage cans, basically everything that we need to operate on a daily basis. This is our outdoor storage for all of our snow equipment vehicles. It'll help keep snow and ice off of them so we can respond quicker. Out there to the east, we've got our new salt brine machine. That new machine can produce up to 6,000 gallons of brine an hour, whereas the one that we previously had was roughly around 4. So that also helps turnaround time. We can get in, reload, and get back out on the streets where we do our best work. Next to that is our salt storage. We have the capacity to store 2,000 ton of salt. And then if you look straight across to the south, in the back corner, we've got our slurry sand bin and slurry operations. Moving to the west, we've got our solids dumps. That's where our sweepers come in when they're full. We house that until we can haul it off on a later date. And then the last bay here on the west side is our new washout bay. We catch and retain all stormwater runoff, which all feeds to a retention basin at the east end of the property.
Thank you, Zeke. I'm Dan Johnson, West Valley City Engineer. The engineering division is not housed here at the Public Works facility, but we interact very closely with the other divisions that are here, and we are very excited for the increased efficiency and the new place to work and the more space, and we're definitely excited for this new facility.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you all for sharing with us your insight with this electronic walkthrough and open house of our facility. Now, as you've seen this video, hope you are pleased with the outcome and the construction of this great facility. We in the Public Works Department feel very fortunate and very proud to have such a great facility to work in and have the opportunity to safely accomplish our work. I would like to thank our mayor and the City Council for your support. I would like to thank our city manager, Mr. Wayne Pyle, for the funding and for believing in us and for helping us make this a reality.
Those who have put this together, it's been city-driven for these types of things, and we appreciate the great work that has gone into this, and for those who have guided the efforts, Jake and Russ and the many others who have kind of overseen the vision of this and made sure that it happened. And so to them and to Wayne, thank you for your effort and works, and especially to each of you who are city employees for the work that you do. Many times not seen, most times not thanked for, most times not really visible in any significant way, but valued beyond measure if it's not there. With that, thank you very much.
I also want to say thank you to several people today. It's a very gratifying day for me to, I've been with the city the whole time you saw the picture that was here of what our facility looked like 35 years ago. And to look at what it is today is a very gratifying moment for me to see the improvement that's taken place. It's been a long journey. We've made different improvements along the way, but I finally feel that we've got a complete site, and it's a great blessing for our employees and something that they deserve to be able to work out of the facility, and as the mayor said, to be more effective and efficient in the work that we do. It's very, again, gratifying for me to be able to provide them through the bonding and what we've gone through to get this building a nice place to work and some place that they can be proud of and that's befitting the second largest city in the state. So thank you very much to our employees, to the mayor and council, and to our project team.
It's beginning from the 2.5, 3 acres, 17,000 square feet facility to a beautiful 10.5 acres property with an infrastructure that would last for a long time, approximately 70,000 square feet, that fitting to be called the Public Works Operational Building, which I would consider best of state in West Valley City. Thank you all for watching this video.
Well done. And for those of you who weren't there to go on tour, we hope you got a flavor for the buildings and the changes that have taken place on that site. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll take the next item on our communications, the open space requirements follow-up. And who's going to talk about this? There's
I believe we should. Mr. Pastoric? Okay, very good, Mayor.
Yeah, he was just slow getting on. Whoops, wait a minute, Steve. I couldn't hear you there. Try again. Oh, it's off. Let's see. Nope, sound's not coming through. Okay. He's going to see if he can figure that out. Wayne, do you want to make any comments while we're waiting?
Yeah, absolutely, Mayor. Maybe I can just make an introductory comment to why we're here. You'll probably remember that we've had a couple of subdivisions or development projects that have come through in the last little while, where as we increased or got more proposal for density, it became apparent how some of our open space definitions work within the frameworks of those projects. So council asked for a little bit more input and information on that. And I see Mr. Pastoric looking expectantly, so I'm assuming we can hear him now. Is that right, Steve? Nope, still can't hear you. There you go. And you're out again.
Steve, it's Eric down in the EOC. If you want to come down here, we're set to go for you.
Okay.
Mayor, if you've got any questions about that, or if I had prepared a joke, I would have taken the time to entertain you with that. I do know where Steve's office is down at the EOC is 2 flights of stairs, so he should be down there in about 2 to 3 minutes, I would guess, or maybe a little less. But actually, I was going to say and give a quick description of what we are going to talk about, but I believe everybody has access to the PowerPoint's presentation, so you can see what those items are we're going to be discussing.
Well, what we could do, Wayne, is maybe see if there's any questions on the COVID-19 update.
Oh, yeah. That's a good idea.
Usually there's not much. And the most interesting thing on the news with that was the Hospital Association's plan to, if ICU fills up, to have a priority triage method. And that has awakened a few people because it's some real clear issues about who can receive treatment if you have to make a decision between 2 different people and there's only 1 bed available. So that's going to be an item of discussion for a while now, because it creates some real challenges. Anyway, it looks like Steve is down there and ready to speak on the open space.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Hopefully you can hear me now.
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. And apologies, I ended up getting a new webcam and apparently it's not very functional. So time for a new one. So as Mr. Powell mentioned, this is an item that was discussed a few weeks ago, and council requested that we come back with some additional information. And the specific things that the council asked us to consider would be to really better define what we mean by open space, what's included, what's not included, come up with some standards for landscaping and clear standards for open space. And then also the council requested having a new definition for planned unit development or PUD. And so this first slide, we're suggesting, and again, this is just a discussion, so we don't have an ordinance for the council to consider, but to change the term open space to recreation space. We feel like that more accurately captures what we're talking about. And so you'll notice those 3 bullet points. The recreation space would include 3 things. So the first is outdoor space that's shared in common by the residents. So that could be everything from courtyards to shared roof decks to sports courts, and you can see the list of things there. But the idea would be things that are outside that are shared by the residents of a development. The second would be indoor space that's shared by residents. So that could be things like fitness rooms, clubhouses. They could have community centers or recreation centers, indoor sports courts, for example, and other things you can see listed there. And the final thing would be what I'm calling private outdoor space for the basically, and those are areas that are reserved just for the residents that are living next to that space. So, for example, it would be rear yard space, front porches, patios, balconies, again, that are private to that particular owner or resident. So those are the things that would be included under recreation space. And then under the next slide here.
Steve, can I ask a question real quick before you move on?
Of course.
So you have on the outdoor space in the first paragraph, shared roof decks, but then you have roof decks on private space.
Correct.
To me, a shared roof deck is not shared with the entire community, just you and maybe the neighbor next door.
So we have seen some examples of shared roof decks where it's shared by the entire community. So for example, the ICO's Phase 2, which is here in Fairborn Station, they have a portion that is over the lobby. That's a roof deck that's basically accessible to all the residents. So that's the distinction. Is in most cases, roof decks are for that individual owner or resident, but we have seen some examples. Another example would be for the project on Decker Lake Drive and 31st South. The council recently approved. That project also has shared roof decks that are accessible to all of the residents.
And are any of the decks or roof decks included in the square footage of the unit?
They're not, no. So we only count in terms of square footage, it's only enclosed space. So anything that's open air would not be included.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
You're welcome. So we thought it'd be helpful to also to define what recreation space is not. And so this slide gets into things that we would not include. So anything that's part of a public right of way. So private improvements like curb gutter and roadway improvements. Parking and maneuvering areas. So if you have a parking lot, that would not be included. Building roofs that don't cover a porch or that don't have a roof deck. You can see retention areas and then stormwater detention areas where there's not a significant slope. So the intent there is we do see some detention areas that have that are rarely used, that don't have a significant slope to them. But in other cases, if it's a steep slope and very deep, then there's really not a lot of utility for recreation use. So that's our suggestion for things that would be excluded. Next slide here would just be to remind the council about, okay, what is landscaping when we talk about landscaping? So this is our current definition. So that would remain the same, and that comes into play in the next slide, which is are some suggested standards. Okay, so again, not proposing an ordinance at this point, but these are some recommendations. So first of all, I'll start with the third row, and that is the minimum landscaping percentage. So this is something the council specifically requested. So what we're talking about here would be areas, again, thinking about the definition of landscaping that are actually landscaped. So this is not sports courts or clubhouses or sidewalks, it's actual landscaping. So our suggestion here is that there would be, for projects that are under 20 units to the acre or up to 20 units per acre, 25% of the site would be landscaped. So that's a minimum. Okay? They could certainly have more. Same percentage between 20 and 30. And then when you get to over 30, and at that point it would go to 10%. And I'm going to show some examples here in a minute. And the idea here is that as you get more dense, you tend to have buildings filling more and more of the site. So they're still able to provide recreation space, but much of that is more in a hardscape or indoor space as opposed to actual landscaping. So that's the first standard would be the landscaping percentage. And then the line up where it has the minimum total recreation space and landscaping. That's a combination of landscaping as well as recreation space. So again, you have to have, under that first example, under up to 20 units per acre, you would have 25% is landscaping at a minimum. And then an additional 25% is either, anything that qualifies as recreation space. So that could be additional landscaping, or it could be other things that qualify for recreation space. So, and you can see again, as you increase in the density, that total amount we're suggesting would decrease down to 40%.
So Steve?
Yes.
Can you explain to me why you would do that, where you have more people and you want less percentage of landscaping instead of more to accommodate more people?
Sure. So it's really a function of just the amount of area on a site that could be available. you'll see in a couple of examples, I've got one project that falls in that 20 to 30 units per acre range that's existing, that's in the just over 40% range on the total recreation and landscaping. We have another project that's has more than that, that's over 50%. So we could look at increasing it. And so as you see some examples, you may think, okay, yeah, that project needed more, or no, that's about right. But we were trying to base these on existing projects that the council would be familiar with and could visualize and see how these percentages actually play out in real projects.
Okay.
So the first example is a project that's still relatively new. It's just starting construction. It's Erin Hills Townhomes. This is on the southeast corner of 35th South and 5600 West. So you can see the numbers here. It's 12 acres, 130 units. The density is just under 11 units per acre. So their landscaping percentage is just under 28%. And then if you add up all the recreation space and landscaping, they're at 52 and change. And then that's comprised of, in that project, of things like a tot lot, sports court, pavilion, landscaped areas, and then they have roof decks and patios and similar features. So and then this plan here, this is the overall site plan. So just to orient you here, 35th South is on the right, 5600 West is here at the top, so north is on the right. You can see they have these this larger open area in the middle, and then these courtyard spaces in between the buildings. But again, so in this particular project, they were just over what we're suggesting. So a little bit more than 25% on landscaping, and also a little bit over on the total amount of landscaping and recreation space. The next example is a little bit older. This one's been in place for a number of years. This is the Pinnacle Apartments at Highbury. So taking the next step up in density. So 13 acres, 290 units. You can see the density is over 20 units to the acre. Their landscaping percentage was 34.3%. But then their recreation space and landscaping we calculated at just over 43%. So some of the things they had for their recreation space would be a pool, tot lot, clubhouse, and then they had mostly landscaped areas, and then some private patios and balconies. So when you look at this plan, again, to Councilwoman Lang's question here, you can see the main distinction between a project like this and then the next project I'm going to show is surface parking. So when you're in the 20 to 30 unit per acre range, you tend to have surface parking. So in this case, these buildings are 3 stories. They have what are called tuck under garages. So they have garages on one side of the building. But as you can see from this plan, much of the parking is still on the surface. So again, this is one where it would be just over the 40%. The final example is one that's the council's familiar with also. It's the project under construction here in Fairborn. So this is phase 2. So this is the one that's currently being constructed. So just under 3 acres. You can see it's just over 200 units, almost 70 units to the acre. Now their landscaping percentage is only about 12%. And really the function or the reason for that is this building fills almost the entire site, which in this situation, being in Fairborn Station, is part of our downtown. So you would expect the building to be closer to the street and more of an urban environment. But what's interesting here is that while they have a relatively low landscaping percentage, their overall recreation space and landscaping is actually very high. And that's accomplished through having interior courts that are at grade as well as on top of the parking deck. And as I mentioned earlier, they have a roof deck area, and then they also have a lot of indoor recreational type amenities, like a community center. They also even have an indoor half-court basketball court inside the building. So that's how they're able to accomplish that percentage. So again, if you look at this next slide, which is the site plan, it's really hard to illustrate because the recreation space is on multiple levels of the building. So here you can see this is the interior courtyard at the ground level. On the upper level, or the second floor, there's actually more recreation space here on top of the parking deck, as well as some interior features like a fitness room, for example. So this one is unique from the prior project in that much of their recreation space is either hardscaped and like patio space above a parking deck, or it's inside the building in the form of community space, like a shared kitchen facility, those kinds of things. So before I move on to the planned unit development definition, are there questions on what we're discussing or what we're suggesting here in terms of the percentages, which I'll go back to here? Not hearing any, so I'll go to the last slide here is the definition of our planned unit development. So you can see in this first slide, the existing definition, we have some sections that are struck out and then also underlined. There really wasn't a clear direction from the council on what specifically was wanted in terms of changes. So what we changed in this proposal would be to eliminate any reference to mixing uses within a planned unit development or PUD. We really have not done that. So that is removed. And then you'll notice at the bottom of the definition, there's a list of features that under the previous definition were optional, but now we're saying if you're going to do a PUD, you're required to have these things. So instead of saying may include, we're now saying shall include those features. So the last slide really just takes those changes and shows a clean version without the strikeouts and underlining for the text. Any questions?
Well, I don't know about questions, but I have some comments. I'm still struggling with the percentages that you came up with, and also some on the definitions where we include private space in there, such as porches, balconies, and unshared, rooftops, where just a single unit or two units maybe have access. I'm not sure I like the concept of including that in this recreation space. If it were separate, maybe, because I think the key parts are those parts that are common for the whole development. And so the landscaping, which I would call the green space, if you will, almost, although it's not completely green. And then the other, which is typically hard surface. So I'll need some time to just ponder through that and recommend some possible changes, because that just doesn't quite make sense to me yet. I guess it's standard practice to include porches and patios and balconies in the recreation space. I don't know.
Let me explain maybe why that was done. So imagine, if you will, a building that has a porch and one that does not. If a building doesn't have a porch, typically that would just be landscaping, and so that would be included in the open area. And so if someone adds on a porch, it's still space that's outside, it's not enclosed, and still usable outside. It's just now has a cover over it. So we, as staff, we didn't want to have a scenario where, in a sense, you're penalized by adding a porch, because if the porch is not there, then it's landscaped and would be counted. But now by adding a porch, if it's not included, now they're kind of penalized for adding a porch.
I don't view it as a penalty, but as a way for them to meet the percentages without really making it recreational or landscaping. I guess that's my concern. I mean, the patio, the porch, or the balcony are amenities for an individual who is going to live there.
Right.
And we're allowing that to be counted towards the overall concept of the project. I'm not sure I agree with that, and I know I don't agree with it as being a penalty. It's just a design feature, and maybe our percentages might need to be modified if that's the case. Or maybe we need to identify how much of that could count towards this project rather than just saying all inclusive. I don't know. I need more time to go through that. I read through this, and those are kind of some of the issues that hit me. And I don't know, maybe other council members can weigh in as well. And because, yeah, to go ahead.
If I may, Mayor, one other just comment. In a standard single family subdivision where it's not a PUD, it's just, public streets, and there's no common area. Basically, the recreation space is each person's own individual home, right? Their own backyard, their front yard, that sort of thing. And so in a townhome scenario, the part of that outdoor space, if you will, is their patio or porch, or in some cases, depending on the concept, some townhomes actually do have backyards. So that was part of the thought, is it's at least for private space, it becomes their outdoor space, similar to a single family home that they can use on their own.
But Steve, we
Yes.
have, I don't remember the percentage exact, but in a single family home, you have to have so much landscaping. So they take out their landscaping, they put a nice patio or porch on the front. Do we count that as their landscaping, since we're counting it as landscaping for this? Because otherwise it's a penalty for them to put the porch and take out lawn.
So in the case for single family, the way that's calculated is we look at the front yard and exclude anything that has a cover. Okay, so it's basically what's in front of the house, which would include, would exclude the front porch. So anything that's not covered, that's in the front yard, we say that at least 60% of that would need to be landscaped, and the other 40% can be hard surface. So a driveway, concrete, asphalt, that sort of thing. So in the case of a single family home, a home that adds a porch isn't being penalized per se. It's that the front yard space is just now smaller, and that front yard space now, 60% of that new area would have to be landscaped.
So that's why I don't see why there's a difference where it's counted for one and not for the other, because they're taking away their landscape. And so the percentage of their landscape is less because it's not a covered porch.
So I understand the question. The difference is, in the case of single family, it's a percentage of just the front yard, which can change as you add or subtract a porch. In the case of what we're suggesting here, it's a percentage of the entire site, which doesn't change. So in other words, the percentage for recreation space and landscaping is the same whether there's, at least what's required is the same whether there's a porch or not. That percentage holds because it's based on the total area of the site and not just of the front yard.
Okay. I don't know that I agree with that, but I'll take that explanation.
Okay.
I agree with Mayor that I think these percentages on the landscape and the recreation, I think they should be the same all the way across, and maybe even So if you're gonna do 50, 50, 50, 50, 25, 25, 25, and honestly, on the 30 and over, I think it should be 60% and 35%. I think it should be higher just because the amount of people there in that square footage just doesn't make sense to not have enough landscaping to really take care of them.
You know, if I might make a couple more comments, conceptually, by allowing a living space that is smaller, you know, higher density, we are saying you're eliminating a lot of the yard. And to trade for that, we're going to have you build common areas where they can go with their family and spend time. So it's kind of a trade-off to say, you know, these recreation areas, as you're terming them, replace the private single-family home recreation areas within their yard. And Councilwoman Lang's comments on this, and then as I looked at the higher density like ICO there in Fairborn Station, is there a justification for, in a big project, to attract those who don't want a yard? They don't want space outside. They want parking, they want living space, and if they want to go do something, they will go somewhere to do that. They really don't want to take care of a backyard or anything like that. So I don't know. And I need some time just to I guess, ponder that. I'm certainly not ready at this point to say, let's adopt anything. Maybe the rest of you disagree. Maybe you're all ready, but I'm certainly not. Anyway.
Mayor, I
Yes.
think you're on the right track with that. If the typical residential lot is maybe 40% house and 60% lawn, and so we're going to have 20 units and it's going to be the same ratio or similar. We're not really building apartment buildings. We're just making a great big subdivision that has as much recreation or open space as if you had a single family home. And I don't think that's what people are building apartments for, or why people are living in apartments.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we need to change anything. That's why I've been a little bit quiet, but certainly, you know, I would have to see some proposal. It'd have to make sense. It'd have to make more sense over what we have now to make any adjustments. I mean, I feel inexpert in deciding these things.
Yeah.
Steve, you hear me?
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. How you came up this study and why you think it's feasible for our city? Did you do some comparison with other cities? Can you basically explore that one for us, for me, and for our people to understand a little bit about why you came up and how it's feasible for our city, and did you do any comparison with our city?
Thank you. So we have not looked at other city codes. We certainly can do that. We were basing the percentages on looking at recent projects that have been approved under our current standards, and then trying to look at the types of features that are being provided in these projects that the council's approved, and saying, okay, if these are projects that are getting approved and have these kinds of percentages, can we come up with a standard that would see those kinds of same types of projects or same types of amenities and same amounts of recreation space perpetuated in the future? But if using recent projects is a bad barometer, then we can take another approach.
Well, I know that was helpful that you did use those as kind of a barometer, as one of the ways to look at it. And I think from my viewpoint, I'm trying to say, what will be attractive to make people come and live in West Valley and stay living here in these high density projects? You know, if it's going to turn over every 3 months, I'd just soon not have it built at all. I don't care if it meets our requirements. What I'm looking for is something that attracts people to West Valley. And if modifying the recreation landscaping concept will do that, I'm for it. If it doesn't, I don't like it. I think that's what killed that last project. Was I just didn't think it just didn't work. So that's what I'm looking for here. How can we make this more attractive to residents? Not necessarily better for developers, but rather for residents, to make them want come and live here. And there's two sides to that. Those who want the amenities associated with high density, and those, you know, and they're two different types, all inside and more outside. So I don't know. And maybe it has to be a variety. Interesting.
Maybe just
So
one other, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead and then I'll ask my question.
Just one thing that was not in the presentation, just as a reminder to the council, we also do require a certain number of amenities that scales with the size of the project. So the more units, the more amenities they're required to have. So within that, you know, landscaping or recreation space for projects with more units, they actually have to have things in them. So tot lots or swimming pools, hot tubs, things like that. So that's another thing that's already in the code, that as a project gets larger, they're required to have more amenities within their space.
Yeah.
So I think one thing we need to remember is the effect of the high density housing on the community around it. You have however many units, and they're all going to the park that's right next door, and then the residents don't have a park anymore that are in a full-size house, and not everybody has a big enough yard. They still like going to parks. I think that overflow, to be as much self-contained as they can, is necessary for the quality of the surrounding neighborhood. And then my other thing, while we're looking at this, I really think we need to look at making the roads standard public streets so that we do not have all this on-street parking, as we did the complaints at our last meeting saying developments up on 56th, they don't have enough parking. They're out on the roads, which children running in and out of roads to get to their cars and across the road to their car is just a disaster waiting to happen. So I really think we need to look at parking in these PUDs and change it to public roads.
Any further comments?
Well, actually, I agree with Ken about the point for the parking. Yeah. Bigger road. And we don't have any problem with the parking we're dealing with right now. So I think I concur with them.
Okay. Wayne, we haven't given any specific directions here. There are some ideas floating out there. If it's okay, can we schedule this, say, in another 3 weeks, the same stuff? If someone has something they would really like to find information about, you can add it during then, but I just think we need some time to let this settle. And I don't know that we have anything specific to add to it other than maybe some of you may want to have some individual conversations with Mr. Pastrick or whatever, and maybe not. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely, Mayor. And just keeping in mind the context of the conversation, we weren't really coming forward. You'll notice this wasn't in ordinance modification form or anything like that. This is really just concept and proposal in reaction to council questions, and recognizing that there are questions about how developments occur or are going to occur as higher density development happens. So yeah, absolutely. We'll bring that back in 3 weeks.
Okay.
And
actually,
percolate.
Wayne, that okay question wasn't really for you, it's for the council.
Oh, I thought you were.
I wanted the council to say it's okay to bring it back, or no, we don't need to. I just need some quick feedback from the council.
Gotcha.
I'm good with having it brought back in 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm good with it too, so that we get it clarified.
Yeah. Maybe the one thing is to look at some nice developments in other cities. Don't go to a lot of work, but maybe how do these compare? Both those that are like Fairborn Station and those that are more outside common area amenities, apart from being in the building. A little more information.
Sounds good.
Okay. With that then, let's move forward. We do have a closed session that we need to get to. We talked a little bit about the COVID-19 update, council calendar. Any concerns? Under potential future agenda items, any issues there?
Mayor, I do have a little bit of information we wanted to bring up in relation to the question that was raised earlier in the secondary employment question with the police. Okay, very good.
Go ahead.
So just quick introduction. Councilwoman Lang had brought to our attention some questions from a business owner as to what was happening potentially with changes in how the police department administers secondary employment. And another council member, Mr. Christensen, forwarded me on an email that he'd gotten, or some concerns he'd gotten through email. And so we thought, rather than wait another 2 weeks on a topic that was pretty timely here, we'd just have Deputy Chief Buchanan and the chief present that same information we gave to Karen yesterday, in case anybody else has any questions about what's going on. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Colleen, who I think is going to introduce Deputy Chief Buchanan.
Actually, boss, I'm going to take the lead here for a minute.
Okay, very good.
Let me just start by saying that we have made some changes to our secondary employment and our process in doing so. There's 3 main reasons for this particular change. The first is consistency and standardization. The second is fair and impartial police services to our community. And the third is to reduce risk and liability to the city. For the last 40 years, since we've been a police department, secondary employment has been all over the place. Some of them are hired by a separate company and paid directly through them. Some are paid through the city and then the company's invoiced. Some are 1099, some are W-2s. Some of the companies select the officers that they want in particular, and then they schedule it. Sometimes we schedule it and it's open to everyone. So as you can see, there's a lack of consistency in how these have been handled. In addition, there's a discrepancy in pay rates. Business A may pay $50 an hour. Business B may pay $30 an hour. Business C may pay $45 an hour. Business D may pay $20 an hour. So it's been a real challenge to track and manage these particular secondary employment functions. And in an attempt to do so, I've committed one of my lieutenants to that specific function. And it takes about 3/4 of her job to manage and track this information, of which we're still not able to fully track and manage it, especially when the company itself is keeping the schedules of the officers and has no way to cross-reference it with their actual duty times to make sure they're getting enough rest between both full-time employment and secondary employment. So with this third-party company that we're going to, it provides the consistency and standardization for every company that we deal with, as far as what the rules are, as far as what we will provide our officers their color of authority under our city to work. It also standardizes the pay rate, and it's consistent and across the board for all of these businesses. The cost for the police officer is the same for everyone. We've basically, to some degree, been subsidizing some of these businesses with discounted rates for police services, and we've been assuming the liability. I think some may interpret how it's been handled as preferential treatment for some. In addition, we've paid out workers' comp claims because of part-time employment or secondary employment. We've also paid out lawsuits from secondary employment. So going to this third-party company alleviates all of those issues that I just discussed. And we've been researching and looking into this for almost 2 years now, and we've progressed to a point that we're ready to launch. And this particular change, just for the fact that it is change, is causing quite a bit of consternation, both with the businesses and with the police employees. But we will rip the Band-Aid off. We will proceed down the road, and this will be a better way of doing business once the adjustments have been made. And that is it in a nutshell.
Chief, can you tell me the name of the third party that we'll be scheduling again?
Yes, it's called Off Duty Management. If you'd like, I can bring up their website. They've got a 5-minute video that kind of explains all of this liability and scheduling, and all of the benefits that they provide, both to the city, the department, the officer, and the companies.
Well, I'll look it up. Thank you.
Chief?
Yes, Mr. Bueller.
I believe I heard you say that there's only 2 things that police officers hate. One
Yes,
being
sir.
change, and the second being the way things are. So
Yes, sir. That is absolutely accurate.
I guess there's no harm in making a change if they already hate the way things are.
So if we have companies that discontinue this service, our officers will not have the opportunity to make more overtime pay. Is that correct?
That is not entirely correct, ma'am. We do have other overtime and secondary opportunities available. Currently, I have several DUI shifts that are not being filled. So there are plenty of opportunities for extra duty to be paid. I'll leave it at that.
It sounds to me like there's a lot more to this issue. What is the urgency of addressing this right now? Are you signing a contract in the next 2 weeks?
The contract has been signed. It is not a cost to the department or the city. The company itself, part of its fee to the business covers their services as well as compensates us for the wear and tear on our vehicles and equipment.
Mayor, I might add and point out as well, this isn't even an item that we would have brought to the council at all. There's no ordinance change or resolution or other work that the council needs to consider on this. This is purely an administrative decision and action being taken. However, because of the public reaction in terms of both businesses and some concerns of the officers that have been made known to the elected officials, I just thought it'd be appropriate to bring it and make sure that everybody was aware of what was going on as we were doing it. So that's really the only reason we brought it to you.
Yeah. Well, but I'm glad you did, because I do have, and have talked with other people, but it's never risen to the level of thinking anything could be done about it. But certainly when an officer that wears his West Valley City uniform or drives his West Valley City police car to a private location to perform private services, not city services, there are some issues, and you're trying to address those, which I think is a great idea. But that certainly has an impact financially on the morale of officers. It's quite an issue. So I'm just personally very interested in it. So leave it at that.
And you're absolutely right, sir. It is having an effect on morale, but I think part of it is the change component and the unknown. It's very easy to have anxiety over the unknown. This is a process to make this change. It's not the flip of a switch. We plan on having everything up and running and under this umbrella by January 1st. So we're giving businesses time to adjust. We're giving officers time to adjust. And we're trying to ease through this process as much as possible, realizing that it is change and it's going to be a challenge for some.
Well, and I would like to say thank you. I think the most impactful thing that you said, Chief, was that we need our officers to have sufficient rest physically and mentally so that when they're on duty in our city, they're at their best. And I could see certainly officers out there hustling side jobs, whether they're in the uniform or not, can be a problem in that regard. And then the additional using our cars, our certification and so forth, when they're working for private entities, all of that needs to be controlled and brought into a system that's fair, where they're all being paid the same. They're not just out there contracting with different businesses and so forth. I think this is an absolute necessity. And I didn't know it was so random and seemingly out of control either. I'm glad to hear that these steps are being taken. So thanks for the report.
Yes, sir. And this is strictly law enforcement related jobs. It's security type jobs.
Okay.
If they're out selling real estate or mowing lawns or selling Avon, I could not care less.
We don't have any control over that then.
Well, we do. They still have to have authorization, but I would have no problem in authorizing that.
I just want to let you know, Chief, I'm very support this. Like my question is the level of police officer increase in the past to do the odd job like this, and then you bring this one up to our council, or what is it the reason why you bring it up at this time?
Tom, to that question again on the chief's behalf, just as I was saying to the mayor a moment ago, it's only because the attention has been brought to the council anyway, and so I therefore foresaw that this would become a question and raised to the council, and you would be asking questions anyway, as Dawn and Karen already did. So I just figured it was better to let you know what was going on now. That's all.
Okay.
And Wayne is very astute in that. I agree, especially given the environment and the increased focus on police departments right now. So, yeah. Thank you, Chief and Wayne, both.
I appreciate that, Chief and Wayne. The one concern I had was that many of the officers that talked to me also said they were worried about the companies that they work with right now not being able to afford the higher fees. And so you might want to address that as you go through working with the third party.
And that is accurate, sir. This is part of our commitment to being fair and impartial with our police services. When one company is being charged $50 for an officer and the next one's being charged $20 for that same officer, it does not seem like it is fair and impartial. It seems like they are getting preferential treatment. So this makes the pay rate the same across the board. And if this is the going rate for police service as a secondary employment. So it is a change for them. They've had this luxury of basically having discounted services for many, many years, and they quite frankly think it should continue, but it's time that it be corrected.
See, and I
Okay.
feel like just one more little thing is, I feel like deterring crime is much easier and cheaper than going in and cleaning up the crime scene. So that's why I'm in favor of leaving it like it is. I think it works for our businesses in West Valley. They don't contract with businesses out west side of West Valley. It's just West Valley. And I think it was a great service we were offering that I'm sad to see that probably won't be used as much. And our time will be spent doing other things.
Okay, council, where our time is quickly going. Without objection, I recommend that we go immediately to a closed session. Although I do mention that we probably ought to have a communication item in the near future on electronic meetings under COVID. This may go on for another 4 or 5 months. So let's have a discussion in a future meeting, Wayne, if that's okay, and how we deal with that.
Absolutely, Mayor. That'll be fine.
Are you okay with just stopping at this point and going to our closed session? Steve, would you make a motion then? Your thumb is up.
What's the purpose of our closed session?
To review pending or imminent litigation, our quarterly report, et cetera.
Move that we adjourn and enter a closed session to discuss pending or imminent litigation and discuss no other business in that meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Without objection, then we will close our meeting and take care of that business, and then that's the only thing we'll deal with.
To leave this meeting and open a new meeting, don't we?
Yes, that's correct. And I'll give you some instructions as soon as we get in that meeting. With that, I hear no objections. So we will close our meeting and that was unanimous. Close our electronic meeting.